So we'll do a little flip through beforehand so you can just kind of see what's going on. And I've got some shorter pages, some regular pages, and then my end. And you can see the space between my signatures. So this will be August. And I've got a shorter flap, longer page. And I made sure to have enough pages in here so that I can do a month at a glance, plus each week at a glance, plus some extra pages for gluing things down, mark making, all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty much it. Pockets. And remember, we've got pockets right here, plenty of places to put things. And that's my journal. It's been a while. I thought I'd take you through a journal that I'm currently working on. I got this idea from Barbara at 49 Dragonflies to do a junk journal planner with a paper bag cover. And I've already made the cover. I've already got my signatures. I'm ready to bind. But let me walk you through what I did. So I chose a paper bag for the cover. I like the idea of having like a soft cover that is adjustable or expandable for the spine. And so inside here is just a brown paper bag. Actually, it's white. And you can kind of see that on the edge there. But I chose this red, pink, dark brown fabric for the outside of the cover. It's got like flowers on it, and I thought it looked really retro and pretty. And this is, I intend for this planner to be my Q3 planner for 2024. I normally don't do planners by quarter. I usually plan out my month and then by week for my business, but I like the idea of having a quarterly planner. And so I wanted to create one in the middle of the year, which is totally fine. You can do it whenever you want. Barbara does hers in 4 months at a time. And to me, that just doesn't make sense for me. I would prefer it to be for every quarter. So I'm doing this one for Q3 because we're in the middle of Q2 right now. And I chose this bright green fabric that almost looks tie-dye for the inside of the cover. And then I did some stitching. Well, first I glued the fabric to both sides with some watered down matte Mod Podge. And then I did some stitching with white thread around the edge of the cover. And I was having a lot of trouble with my machine. The top thread kept breaking, but I think it's because of the thickness. Like it's 2 paper bag sheets thick, plus the fabric, plus having glued it meant that the needle is going through a lot of layers, pretty tough layers. My top thread kept breaking, but that's fine because I wanted to have like a kind of messy stitch going on, and that is definitely what I achieved with this cover. And I've got 3 signatures here, which I'll show you in a second, but since I have 3 signatures, I made a stencil for my spine and to poke holes in order to bind my spine with a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So I just took a piece of, this is just tea-dyed like scrap paper, and I marked which side of the paper was the top. I kind of positioned this so that there was equal space from the top and the bottom. And this is 3 inches wide. I wanted to have a 3-inch wide spine because when I held up my signatures kind of like this and I put the ruler over it, I was like, okay, like 3 inches, I can probably make that work with giving the pages a little bit of room to grow as I add to it. And so this, between these 2 outside lines, is 3 inches. And because I have 3 signatures, I marked out 3/4 inch spaces in between. So these are the 3 signatures here. This is pretty much the edge of the spine. And I'm going to do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch To mark the holes, I folded the paper hot dog style to get the center hole, and then I just folded each edge in here and creased to find where the top and bottom holes were going to be. I lined this up with my cover. I first folded my cover to find the middle of it and kind of creased it with my fingers so that I could see where the center was. And then I lined up the center of my template with the center of the cover. I used some binder clips and paper clips to hold the template in place, and then I poked through here with an awl. I have this like little piece of styrofoam in my junk stash, my trash stash. And so I put this under the cover and kind of went, wrap the cover around because it's a soft cover and poke these holes. So I've got this template, which I used to poke the holes in the signatures as well, which is the same concept, but you only poke the center one. You only need to in the signatures. And I always mark which side of the template is the top so that it will be the same. Like these are spaced evenly anyways, but it's good to know which side is the top side so that everything works out the way you want it to. And so now you can kind of see in here that I've got my 3 holes in my 3 lines, and I'm going to use this black waxed bookbinding thread that my mom sent to me. I think the black will look really nice in contrast to the outside. So the spine will be like this, and then you'll see the black stitching of the signatures on the outside. I thought black would look nice. You won't see the stitching on the inside, but if you were to use a green cover like this on the outside, I think the black would look good against that as well. So now I am going to bind in my signatures, but first I will take you through what my signatures look like. I have 3 signatures, 1 for each month of the quarter. And what I'm going to do is have 1 month. I'm going to have the month overall kind of calendar look at what's going on for the month ahead. And then on these inner pages, it's going to be a weekly planner. And I've also left myself plenty of space for art journaling because I would like to do that at least on a weekly basis in the planner. So I used paper bags as the cover for each signature. And this is a trick that I learned from Louisa Heinzel at Junk Journal Art on YouTube. These paper bags were slightly larger than my cover and then my signatures. So my signatures are mostly made up of scrap paper. Somebody was destashing just like paper, and I tea-dyed this. They had like a banner with letters, so each page has like a letter printed on it, which is fine. I'm gonna use this to like glue stuff down and cover up and do art on anyways, but they're tea-dyed, and so I really like the look of that. Going with kind of the retro vibe of the cover, I think the tea-dyed paper looks nice with that. So this is the inner pages of the signature, mostly A4 size, like just printer paper that's been tea-dyed. Some of them I folded like right in half, but then like for this page, you'll see I folded it off center so that the front page is a little bit wider than A5, and then on the other side we've just got kind of like a smaller flap, and I like having that variance in my signatures. I don't want just folded in half pages A5. I want to have some longer pages, some shorter pages, so that's why I folded them that way. But the cover for each month, or just the outside page of this signature, I used paper bags. So this was a paper bag from when my husband and I did glass blowing. This is a Dunkin' Donuts paper bag, and it says, "Please recycle this bag." And I'm like, I got you. But I thought the Dunkin' logo and the colors go really well with the retro vibe of the cover. So once again, this bag was longer than the signatures are tall. So what I did was I tore the bag right down the middle through both layers, and then I smushed them together. I overlapped those layers just a little bit. And then I stitched, well, first thing I did was ink the edge of that top layer. And then I kind of sandwiched the bottom layer into the top layer so that we've got a little bit of overlap here. This actually created, when I stitched down the center, this actually created pockets on both sides of the signature page. So when this is bound in the journal, this will be the front of my August signature. I'll have a pocket here, and then on the back I'll have a pocket here and a little pocket here that I could put some tags or journaling spots into. So that is a trick. Both of these tricks that I'm showing you right now are kind of like, this is something that I saw in Louisa Heinzel's video. This is something that I saw in Louisa Heinzel's video. And then I've got like a dark mossy green paper bag for the last signature. And what I did on this was a little bit different. So I actually tore the paper bag completely open, folded it in half, and then I folded the edge up here, and I folded the bottom edge out and then in, so that when this is bound, I will have pockets going this way. Here I stitched the bottom of this side so that this would be a pocket here, and this would be a pocket here, but on the top, I did not stitch this to the back. So this is actually a pocket on the side now. And this is something that I hadn't seen anybody do, I just came up with that. But on the other side, I stitched all of this closed, and I did a stitch looping around the edge of the bag. So these are not pockets here on the edge, but I've got pockets and pocket. So I was just playing around, trying some new things, but the goal of doing that was to get the cover of the signatures to the pretty much the same height as the pages inside the signatures. So that's the last one. This is the middle signature, and then this one is the first signature. And this is a style that I saw Louisa do, where once again the bag was taller than the pages of the signature. It was like probably that much taller. You had that much space. And she kind of tears just the edges and folds it down a little bit, and then stitches along the top and bottom of the page. So on the outside, you'll see that I tore it and then just kind of folded it up so that this entire page was the same height as the other pages in the signature. And you've created some interest. So these aren't really functional pockets or anything, but it is visually interesting just to have like some folds and some flaps here and some stitching. So that's why I did that. And I wanted to try pretty much a different technique for each signature. So I did the tear and fold up on this one. I tore this bag straight down the middle, slid the bottom layer into the top layer a little bit until I got to the height I wanted, inked the top edge, and then stitched. And then the last one, I flipped up and did some pockets and some stitching. This is just hand stitching. Obviously, that's not a machine stitch. And just to make it look kind of like Frankenstein-y, I like it. And so all together, these signatures are going to go inside my journal and get bound like this. And so it will look kind of like that. And I think it's going to look really neat. I'm going to go ahead and bind these signatures in now. So the one I like to do first is the bottom signature when the book is laying open. And I've got my waxed black binding thread, which is a pretty thick thread. It came in a bookbinding kit that my mom sent to me that she had bought, did bookbinding like, I don't know, once. Decided it wasn't for her, but she tried it out. And then when she found out I was doing junk journaling and stuff, she was like, let me just send you my materials, which is really nice of her. Thanks, Mom. My mom is the copycat quilter on YouTube, so if you're not following her channel and you think quilting is interesting at all, go follow her. what I'm doing is measuring 3 lengths of my signature with this waxed thread. So that's 1, 2, 3 lengths. And I'm going to tie a knot on the end of the thread so that it doesn't pull through when I start binding. And if you already know how to do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, you can skip ahead. So many people have so many great videos, which is how I learned to do it. And it's a pretty simple technique. I like the way it looks, especially on the outside of this kind of soft covered journal. So I just need to thread my needle, which with this waxed thread and using a larger needle that has a pretty big eye, very easy to do. So now I'm going to open up my signature again, and because I've been fussing around with it, the pages are not lined up. So I'm going to get these pages back in line by just putting my awl through everybody to make sure it goes through. And now I'm lined up again. And I'm going to put my needle through the inside of my signature through the center hole and pull it all the way through so that that knot is up against the inside of the signature. And so now my thread is on the outside of the signature. And since this is the last signature in my journal, I'm going to go in the 1, 2, 3rd hole and the center of my 3 signature holes on the cover. So I put this through the center. It comes outside the journal. I'm going to pull that all the way through. And when I pull that, it pulls the signature up tight against the cover. My dog is rolling on the floor right now. I'm going to put my needle through the top hole of the last signature, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull that through because it might be a little tricky to get my needle through. So I might do the trick again, which I learned from Natasha at Treasure Books, of putting your awl through here just to make sure that the pages get lined up again. Hold that signature in place with one hand, and then with the other hand, put your needle through the top hole of your signature and pull through. And I'm tightening a little bit as I go, but I'm going to tighten the slack at the very end. So I'm not super worried about making sure that I pull everything super tight right here. And now that I've got my thread through the top and the center hole, it should be lined up to where I can just put my needle through the bottom hole of the signature without much trouble. And then I go out through the bottom hole of my cover. And now we go back into the center hole of the cover for that signature. And hopefully without splitting the thread on the signature, I'm going to go through the center hole of my signature and pull it out. So now I'm back in the hole that I started from. And I just want to put, and it's probably kind of hard to see because there's a black, there's black printing on this page, but I'm going to pull the slack through. And I'm just going to put my needle to the side, pull the slack all the way through. And I want the starting thread and then my ending thread, which turned out to be pretty long, on either side of the center thread that's going straight down the middle. So just pulling the slack taut through everybody. And then I'm going to do a square knot in the center, at least. So I put the left thread over the right at first, and now I'm going to put the right thread over the left. And another trick that I saw is to just put your awl in here and pull it tight so that that knot gets right down on top of the other one. And I'm going to do one more knot just to secure everything. And that's it. I'm going to snip this thread to about the same length as the starting thread. So you have that much thread left over, which is fine. I can use that for this project. So now my first signature is bound in, and you can see on the outside how that's gonna look. I think it looks pretty cool. And we're gonna do the other two. So the middle signature, oopsies, is my white Dunkin' bag. Now remember, I've already poked the holes for these signatures, but because I was playing around with them and showing them to y'all, I want to get those pages lined up again. And the quickest way to do that is to take your awl and to just poke it through so that these pages are lined up at least at that hole. And here's my thread. So I'm starting with a new thread. 1, 2, 3 lengths of the signature, which we know is more thread than we actually need, but it is okay to have extra thread. I'm going to tie a knot on the end, on one end of the thread. And it can be a square knot. It doesn't have to really be anything special, but I tie, oops, see, and those knots are kind of far apart from each other. So I'm going to do one more, try to make sure that I get them on top of each other, which is kind of hard to do. Like, okay, there. So on the other end of my thread, I'm going to thread my needle. And let's go ahead and bind the second signature. So my awl is still poking out from the signature. I'm going to hold the pages in place and just remove that and then put my needle straight through. And pull that so that that knot comes up to right inside here. And now, since this is the middle signature, I'm going in the middle center hole on my cover to the outside of my cover. And you can see as I pull that thread, that signature pulls right up against it. And when you're doing 3-hole pamphlet stitch, you can either go in the top or the bottom, it doesn't matter. I tend to just go into the top. And make sure that you're going through the center hole and not your first signature hole. Now let's see if I can get in the center of this signature without pushing my awl through those papers. I didn't do it. Okay, well, let's do the trick. Put my awl through that top hole just to get everybody lined up again. Hold the pages in place as you pull the awl out. And then your needle should go through no problem. So I'm pulling through the top hole. I skip over the middle hole and go out the bottom hole of the signature. Pull that. Remember, I'm going to pull the slack and tighten everything at the end, so I don't need to worry about pulling it super tight while I'm doing the stitching. So now I'm on the outside of my cover. I just came out the bottom hole, and I want to go back in through the middle hole of my cover. And I'm going to go ahead and just pull it through the cover first. And then I open the signature again, and I'm going to go through the middle hole of the signature. Maybe I am not catching some of these papers. Somebody's not coming through. Oh, there we go. Just got to play around with it a little bit. So my starting thread is on one side of that center thread. I can go ahead and remove my needle. And then the ending thread is on the other side. And since I went through the top hole when I came back through first, I'm going to pull the slack on that top hole because that's pulling on the center starting thread. And now this has slack, and I'm going to pull on my ending thread to pull the center slack tight. And you can kind of see when you look at the signature on the cover that make sure that it's like pretty flush up against and that things are tight. And so I'm going to do left over right over that center thread, make a knot, and then because I did left over right, I'm doing right over left to make a square knot. And then I'll do one more just for security purposes. And that is your 3-hole pamphlet stitch. Easy peasy. More threads for decorating. And I'm going to do the last signature. This is very like therapeutic. Let's take a look at the spine. So we've got our 2 signatures done in. It looks cute. I like it. Last one. This looks so fun so far. Last one. Open up to the middle of the signature. Poke my awl through so that those pages are held in place. And I'm going to do 1, 2, and this is not exact. I did about 3. I'm not measuring it. It's just a guide to make sure that you've got enough thread. And when you tie the knot on the one end of the thread, remember that this is the end that we use to tie the knot at the end of the binding. So you can leave yourself a pretty decent tail past that knot. You might as well, so that you make it easier on yourself at the end to tie that binding in. And try to get those knots on top of each other, which I'm just not amazing at doing. And that's okay. But look, that's pretty good, I would say. Okay. On the other end of my thread, thread my needle. Boom. All right, let's go. Last signature. Hold the pages in place, pull my awl out, push my needle through the center hole, pull that knot. All right, last hole, the center hole. Pull that through, go in through the top. If you're lucky, you can go through the cover and through the signature, but if you're not feeling lucky today, it's okay. Top hole of the signature. Make sure that we go through all of the pages. And this needle is like not sharp. I mean, it is a point and it will push through fabric, but it's not like, you know, it's more blunt than like other sewing needles because this is really for bookbinding. So it doesn't have to be super sharp. So I can put my finger on the other side and push through gently and feel it coming through to make sure that I'm in the right spot. So last time through the center of the cover and open up my signature and go through. Nope, not today. There we go. I just stuck my finger on that side to feel when it was actually coming through the signature, but do that gently, you know. So you can see there's a lot of slack and my knot is not all the way up against the middle of the signature. But I can remove my needle, and to get this knot to go all the way up against the signature, you pull on the top hole if you went through the top first. And now there's slack on the center thread, and you pull on your ending thread to bring that slack in. And you can see that I am right up against my cover with my signature, which means that I'm tight and I like it like that. So left over right, right over left. The reason I'm doing left over right first is because that was the shorter thread. And it's easier to start tying a knot with the shorter end. And so I'm doing 3, more like it's a square knot, but with 3 knots. And trim. And we're done. That's it. That is binding in signatures to this soft cover journal. I will be decorating the cover soon, but I just wanted to take you through that. So without anything in the journal, you know, it's pretty thin, But because we're using a soft cover, as we put things in, the spine extends and grows, and you've left yourself enough space for a cover here, whether it's laying flat or whenever it grows. And that way you don't have like an alligator mouth situation like that. And that is a technique that I learned from 49 Dragonflies, Barbara from Vienna, Austria. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Thank you all for watching. I know it's been a while. I have been journaling. I just haven't been filming. But I'd like to get back to showing my process with you. And I really appreciate you watching. And yes, I do have this bookbinding tool that allows you to punch your signatures, but the thickness of the pages, it wasn't really going to work. And then I was using a ruler that like these lines don't really line up exactly with the inches. So I was sticking with the ruler that I used to begin with, but you could have something like this where you put your signature pages in like this in the cradle, and then you put this thing on here, and then you just poke, which is really neat. My mom sent me that too. So thanks, Mom, for enabling my hobbies. Anyways, I hope this video was helpful and fun, and thanks for watching, and make sure you like this video and hit subscribe, and I'll be sharing more journal fun with you in the future. Bye!